You don't usually notice when you start doing it. It happens quietly over time. You become the person people rely on. The one who figures things out. The one who steps in when something breaks, whether it's a situation, a plan, or a person. And at some point, without really deciding to, you stop expecting anyone to do the same for you. That's the part most people don't talk about. Because, on the surface, being the fixer looks like strength. It looks like competence. It looks like someone who has their life together. But psychologically, it's usually built on something much more complicated. Sign 1. You feel responsible for problems that aren't actually yours. Not in an obvious way. You're not walking around thinking, everything is my fault. It's subtler than that. You just notice things other people ignore. Tension in conversations, small cracks in plans, people struggling but not saying it out loud. And instead of leaving it alone, you step in. You offer solutions. You smooth things over. You carry a bit of the weight, even when no one asked you to. Psychologists sometimes link this to something called hyperresponsibility. It often develops in environments where things felt unpredictable, where stepping up early made life easier or at least more stable. So now, your brain doesn't really ask, is this mine to fix? It just asks, how do I fix it? And you move. Sign 2. You're uncomfortable being on the receiving end of help. This is where it gets interesting. Because you're not against helping. In fact, you're probably very good at it. You know how to show up. You know what to say. You know how to make things better. But when the roles reverse, something feels off. Someone offers support and your instinct is to minimize the problem. I'm good. It's not a big deal. I'll figure it out, even when you won't. Even when you're tired. There's actually research showing people consistently underestimate how willing others are to help them. But for fixers, it's not just about misjudging others. It's about what needing help feels like internally. Because needing help means sitting, even briefly, in a position you've trained yourself to avoid. Not having the answer. And that feeling doesn't just feel unfamiliar. It feels wrong. Sign 3. Yourself. Worth is quietly tied to being useful. You might not say this out loud. You might not even fully realize it. But there's a pattern. When you solve something, fix something, help someone, there's a subtle sense of relief. Like things are in the right place again, not because you want praise, but because it reinforces something internal. I'm valuable because I can handle things, and over time that becomes part of your identity. The problem is, identities like that don't leave much room for struggle. Because if being the capable one is who you are, then what happens when you're not, even temporarily? Even in a normal human way. That's why small moments not knowing what to do, feeling overwhelmed, needing support can feel bigger than they should. Not because they are, but because they contradict the role you've been playing for years. Sign 4. You solve emotional problems the same way you solve practical ones. Someone comes to you with something heavy, and almost automatically, you start organizing it. What happened? Okay, here's what you can do. Let's think through this. And it works. People feel better, but when it's your turn, you do the same thing to yourself. You analyze, you plan, you try to fix the feeling instead of just experiencing it. There's a concept in psychology around emotional avoidance that doesn't look like avoidance at all. It looks like productivity. You're not ignoring the feeling. You're just trying to solve it so quickly that you never actually sit in it. And over time, that creates distance, not just from your own emotions, but from people trying to connect with you in those moments. Because being supported requires staying in the feeling a little longer than you're used to. Sign 5, asking for help feels heavier than it should. Not logically. You probably believe people should ask for help. You'd encourage it in others, but when it's you, it feels different. There's hesitation, a kind of internal resistance that's hard to explain. Part of it comes from early patterns. Maybe you learned that asking didn't always work, or that it added pressure to people who were already overwhelmed, or that it was just easier to handle things yourself. And once that belief forms, it doesn't really update automatically, even when your environment changes, even when the people around you now are actually willing, even glad, to help. Your brain is still running an older calculation. Handle it yourself, it's safer. And the thing is, it probably worked. That's why it stuck. But what worked then doesn't always fit now. And this is where most advice gets it wrong. Because telling someone like this to just ask for help misses the point. It's not about knowing you can. It's about what it feels like when you do. The shift is slower than that. It's more about noticing the pattern in real time. The moment you start taking on something that isn't yours, the moment you dismiss your own need for support, the moment you turn a feeling into a problem to solve instead of something to sit with, and just pausing there for a second, not fixing it immediately, not correcting it perfectly, just noticing, because being the fixer isn't a flaw. It's a set of skills, useful ones, real ones. You can still be the person people rely on. You can still be capable, resourceful, steady, but that doesn't mean you have to carry everything alone. It doesn't mean you're only valuable when you're solving something, and it definitely doesn't mean you're not allowed to need anything back. You don't have to stop being the person who holds things together. You're just allowed to stop doing it all the time.